Hi everyone, so these are the two poems that I asked in last year's November paper. It was the Dans van die Reën and Eksamenlokaal. I think both of these poems are quite nice. They're not too tricky. I mean, Dans van die Reën has a lot of imagery, and that makes it a little bit more tricky, but it's not too bad. So with the Dans van die Reën, the summary I kind of just gave is die reën kom en al die mense en diere en insekte in die woestyn is bly. So the rain comes after what we can maybe assume was a drought after quite a while, and all the people living in the woestyn, in the deserts, the animals, the insects, everyone's really happy that the rain is coming. And then, just very important, this poem has personification throughout, because they are personifying the rain by saying the rain is their sister. So then 9.1.1, na watter spesifieke ruimte verwys groot woestyn in hierdie gedig? So which specific space does the groot woestyn that they mention here in the subtitle, what specific space does it refer to? So you could have said die Kalahari woestyn, die woestyn waar die Khoi San mense of Jan Konterdans bly. So the whole thing that really had to be there, I think the easiest one is just Kalahari. 9.1.2 voltooi die volgende paragraaf feitelik korrek deur die ontbrekende woorde uit die gedig neer te skryf. So you have to complete it factually correct by taking or getting the missing words from the poem. So not making words up, you're getting it from the poem. Hierdie gedig is 'n en almal is baie bly oor die reën wat kom. So they're saying this song is a what? They tell her, oh, this song, listen to me, I just gave the answer. But this poem is a what? And they say there that this is a lied. It is a song. So the answer is lied. And everyone's just happy very excited about the rain coming. Die groot wild kom op die by mekaar om vir die reën te wag. So the big wild animals get together on the what to wait for the rain. And they actually literally say, here's groot wild. And where do they go to? They come from the vlakte and they go to the bulttop, so the top of the hill. So it's bulttop. And then see, die kleine diertjies is so bly oor die reën dat hulle, what do they do? Okay, they're so excited. These smaller animals are so excited. What do they do? And it gets to this. It says the klein volks, like the insects, etc., deep under the ground, they crawl closer and sing. They sing. So the answer here you had to have there was sing. Sing had to be in your answer. And then the last one is, uiteindelik raak die weg en die wind stop, die reën het gekom. So finally the goes away and the wind stops and the rain comes. And here it just literally says die weg raak van die son, so the sun disappears. 9.1.3, met watter vroulike gebeurtenis word die koms van die reën in strofe 1 vergelyk? So with, not vroulike, sorry, vrolike. So with what happy event is the arrival of the rain being compared to in stanza 1? And here within stanza 1, it literally says die bruilof is groot. So the bruilof is basically a wedding. So you could have just used the word bruilof that they gave you, or you can give the more common word we use in Afrikaans, which is troue. 9.1.4, haal een reël uit die gedig aan wat vir ons sê dat die groot wild die reën ruik. So it says, quote one line from the poem that tells us that the big wild animals can smell the rain. So one line only. And smell, obviously, I feel like this is quite, we have the word neus here, so that obviously indicates smell. So it says, wyd rek hulle die neusgate. So it says, wide they stretch their nostrils. I almost said nose holes. Fun. 9.1.5, 9.1.5, lees reël 17. So we're going to go to line 17, and it says, there's number 1, a massive indentation, yeah, and then there's repetition, and quoting, ons sister, jy het gekom. So our sister, you came. Watter twee tegnieke gebruik die digter om die klein volk se blydskap oor die koms van die suster te beklemtoon? So which two techniques does the poet use to emphasize the smaller animals and insects' joy that the sister is arriving there? So the first one is that indentation, inkeping. Okay, there's a white space. Then herhaling, there's repetition. Both of those things are being repeated. Die gebruik van uitroeptekens, the use of exclamation marks. Gebruik van direkte rede, the direct or report, not the direct speech that is used here. Kort sinne, the fact that it's short sentences. When we are very excited about something, we are out of breath, we would keep our sentences short and sweet. And then also a whole frame. And remember, alliteration and assonance are half rhyming. And we have it here with the S's that we basically have, and obviously the H's, the K's that are repeated, all those kinds of things, we have it. So it's a whole frame. 9.1.6, daar is baie voorbeelde van personifikasie in die gedig. So they say there's a lot of examples in personification in the poem. As I said, the whole poem is basically using personification by personifying the rain as being their sister. So it says, gee 2 aparte woorde uit strofe 3 wat op die sister se liggaamsdele fokus. So they're saying, give 3 separate words in stanza 3 that refers to the sisters like body parts. And yet again, the sister is being personified as a human, but it is actually the rain. So we're going to go to, they say stanza 3, right? So in stanza 3, they talk here about, that's 2, sorry. In stanza 3, haar krale skit, haar koperringe blink, haar voorkop, that's a body part, right? Sy trap af van die hoogte, skryf al 2 arms uit. So we have arms here too. So those are body parts. Remember, they were looking for body parts. So it is voorkop and arms, like forehead and arms. 9.1.7 gee een rede waarom hierdie gedig 'n vrye vers is. Now, very important, here they're not asking why is the rhyme scheme or the rhyme pattern free verse. They're asking why is the poem seen as vrye vers. And a lot of times when poems don't have a set structure, we call them vrye vers. And that's what they say. The first thing, the lines aren't the same length. They are literally all over the place. The stanzas also aren't the same length. And that's what they say here at the second one. Die strofes is nie ewe lank nie. Daar is nie 'n vaste rympatroon. There's also no set rhyme scheme throughout. There's not even just one that they use throughout. They use different ones, etc. Leestekens word nie volgens gewone reëls gebruik nie. So they're saying the use of punctuation is not actually always grammatically correctly used. And you could even give quotes, that's what they're just saying in brackets. And then just die gedig het 'n ongewone tipografie. So it says the poem has an unusual layout, basically. And that's what makes it free verse. 9.1.8 kies die korrekte antwoord. Die toon in hierdie gedig sê vir ons dat die diere is oor die reën. So the tone in this poem tells us that the animals are what about the rain. So again, use the elimination little thingy first. Kwaad. They are definitely not angry. So eliminate that. Hartseer, are they sad about it? No. Dankbaar means thankful. That could potentially fit. Bekommerd is worried, so that also doesn't fit. So this one was a little bit easier to remove things. So the right answer is dankbaar. They are very thankful about the rain. 9.1.9 beskryf die koms van die reën deur die volgende gebeure in die korrekte volgorde neer te skryf. So they're saying you need to describe the coming of the rain, the arrival of the rain, in the correct order according to what they've given you, these 4 bullet points that they have given you. So the first bullet point says, daar is weerlig en blitse, there's lightning, okay, and lightning like strikes, like yeah. Die reën val hard en oor 'n wye gebied. The rain is falling hard over a wide area. Almal sien die reën van ver af oor die berg. Everyone sees the rain from far over the mountain. And then die diere sien die eerste reendruppels op die grond. The animal sees the first raindrops on the floor. So the first thing is that they see the rain coming from far. So almal sien die reën van ver af oor die berg. Then they start seeing lightning. And they're like, oh, okay. Then the animals see the first drops on the floor. And then it spreads out to a wider area and it's raining really hard. So you just have to write all those sentences out in the right chronological order. 9.1.10 Watter les het jy oor die belangrikheid van reën geleer? So it says, what lesson did you learn about the importance of rain? And the first bullet point makes the most sense, where it says, almal reën nodig het om te oorleef. Everyone needs rain to survive. Reën mense en dier opgewonde maak. So rain makes people excited. Mense in die woestyn groot waardering het vir die reën. People who live in the desert or in any area that experiences a drought would show like massive appreciation for the rain. And then this bullet point, reën hoop, nuwe lewe, vrugbaarheid bring. The rain brings hope, new life, and fertility. And then ons dankbaar moet wees wanneer dit reën. We should be thankful when it rains. Then we have Eksamenlokaal, which I think is probably the easiest poem just because it's the one that y'all will identify the most, because if you get this in your exam, you're literally busy writing an exam, right? And this whole poem is about a teacher invigilating and y'all are writing an exam. And the whole idea is the kids didn't really study. Like, they studied the day before, and this is why everything is chaotic. Like, their handwriting isn't neat, all those things. So I just summarized it the shortest way I could possibly think. That says, 'n onderwyser hou toesig terwyl leerders rekordeksamen skryf. So teacher is invigilating. Toesig is invigilating. While learners are writing, a rekordeksamen specifically is prelims. 9.2.1 Watter kontras kry ons in strofe 1? Verduidelik dit in jou eie woorde sodat die kontras duidelik is. So they did specify it, explain it in your own words. So which contrast do we get in stanza 1? We do get this idea that her shoes are making noise and the kids are completely quiet. So die klik of klank van ons skoene hard geluid versus, teenoor is versus, die stilte van die lokaal. Okay, leerlinge sit still. This one, the learners are sitting quietly and they're sitting still, but the teacher is walking up and down. And so the whole idea was, like either it's like the movement that you see the contrast in, or the noise. I think that's like the best one to get it from, but you weren't allowed to quote. So keep that in mind. 9.2.2 Haal een woord uit die gedig aan wat verwys na die eksamen waarmee die kandidaat besig is. So it says, give one word or quote one word from the poem that gives us an idea of which exam the kids are busy with. And so it's common knowledge that matrics are writing prelims around this time. So it is September Eksamenlokaal, that word. Okay, September exam A. So they were just looking for September, but they said one word. So if you use the whole word, you would get the marks. And you also, it just says here again, even if you don't quote, you still get the marks. 9.2.3, die vraestel in die gedig is 3 uur lang. So they give you a statement. The exam in this poem is 3 hours long. And you have to say why this is false. And that's quite easy. It literally says here in line A, die horlosie tel 2 ure af. So the exam is actually only 2 hours. So you could have used that quote or just said 2 ure. 9.2.4, lees strofe 3. So they're asking you to read stanza 3, which is this one that says, hande bewe met rukke, oorskoon met velle, los 'n inkwarboel agter. So it says their hands are basically shaking over the white papers, and it leaves like kind of inky chaos behind. So kies die korrekte woord tussen hakies. Uit hierdie strofe kan ons aflei dat die kandidaat ontspanne of gespanne oor die vraestel is. So from that stanza, we can infer that the candidate, so the person writing, is either ontspanne, which is relaxed, or gespanne, which is stressed. I don't really think a lot of people are relaxed when they're writing exams, so the right answer is gespanne. And very important, if you didn't have this right, if you wrote ontspanne there, they wouldn't even look at B. Okay, those two have to correlate. So verduidelik in jou antwoord op vraag 9. Verduidelik jou antwoord op vraag 9.2.4a in jou eie woorde. So they're saying, explain your answer, if you chose gespanne, which you should have, in your own words. Like, why is it gespanne? Jy just says, hulle hande bewe, their hands are shaking, hulle skryf lelik, they aren't writing neatly, hulle krap antwoorde uit, they are scratching on answers. So anything that indicates the idea that they are writing chaotically, it isn't neat, and they're shaking. Their hands are shaking over the paper. Then lees strofe 3 and strofe 5. So it says go and read stanza 3 and stanza 5. So stanza 3 was that one that we just did. And then stanza 5 talks about the fact that the teacher goes and she collects the papers one by one, blue on white, fresh with yesterday afternoon's knowledge. Wat is die geïmpliseerde betekenis van die skoonwit velle in strofe 3? So in stanza 3, when they talk about the skoonwit velle, so the clean white papers, what are they implying with that? What's the implied meaning? It's the antwoordblaaie. It is basically the answer sheets that you have to write on. But the whole important thing is, dit is die begin van die skryfproses. The teacher just handed it out. So at that point, it would still be clean. The papers would still be clean because the learners did not start writing. And that's what the other one is that I highlighted. Hulle het nog nie begin skryf nie. They didn't start writing. But then B says, hoe verskil dit in strofe 5? How does that, the fact that they haven't started writing on that paper, and there's no ink on that paper, it differ to what it says in stanza 5, which says like they're writing chaotically. Dis vol geskryf. The answers are full ink, it's full of ink, full penmerke, or you could have just said blauw op wit, because now there is blue writing on the white paper. It's no longer just a white paper. 9.2.6, oes die stelle een vir een. Basically, it refers to like harvesting, collecting the papers one by one. Wat is die twee betekenisse van oes binne die konteks van die gedig? So they're saying, what are the two meanings of oes, so collecting, harvesting, within the context of the poem? The first most obvious one is that she's collecting the papers. So die onderwyseres neem die antwoordstelle in. She is collecting, the teacher's collecting the papers. And the second one is, verwys ook na die kennis wat die kandidate weergegee het, hulle antwoorde. It also refers to the harvesting of their answers that they left on the paper. B, watter ander woord in strofe 5 hou direk verband met oes? So which word, one singular word in stanza 5, directly connects to oes, which means harvesting? And here it is ripe, okay, which is ripe, fresh. And that's just what they wrote here, ripe. Then 9.2.7, kies die begrip uit kolom B wat by die aanhaling in kolom A pas. So it says, choose the concept in column A or column B that matches the quote from column A. So it says, dan kraak die blaai van 'n blad. So then there's the crack of the turning of a page. Los 'n inkwarboel agter. Basically leaves behind chaos on a paper that's from ink, like chaos from ink. And then we have the C, say, stop, stadig, the S. So again, just try and eliminate some things. And now with this one, we have alliterasie, vergelijking, metafoor, onomatopoeia, which is also klanknabootsing. Here the whole thing is, we don't have a soos here. We don't have a nes here. So immediately we can actually erase a vergelijking. And then you look at what is left over. So die kraak, the crack of a page is klanknabootsing, onomatopoeia. The inkwarboel is a metaphor because they're saying the ink is like the information that they wrote with ink on their paper is basically chaotic. And then obviously with the underlining of the S's, it makes it easy to see that it's a repetition of consonant sounds. So it is alliterasie. 9.2.8, die gedig begin en eindig met strofes wat uit 3 versies bestaan. Wat noem ons 'n strofe wat uit 3 versies bestaan? So it just says, the poem starts and ends with stanzas that only have 3 lines. What do we call a stanza that only has 3 lines? And it's a tersiene. 9.2.9, waarom is Eksamenlokaal 'n gepaste titel vir hierdie gedig? So why is Eksamenlokaal, exam venue, a fitting title for this poem? And literally, waar die kinders skryf. It is where the kids are writing. It immediately tells us the space. Immediately we know exactly where we are. And yet it says, dit sê reg van die begin af waaroor die gedig gaan. Like we know immediately what the poem is about. It's about an exam because it's in an examination venue. And then also just dit skep afwagting because obviously we know now it's in an exam venue. They're writing exam, so it kind of creates suspense. 9.2.10, waarom kan jy met die inhoud van die gedig identifiseer? I think this is one of the easiest, like, your opinion, link what your experience to the poem, like questions that there's ever been because of the content of the poem. But it says, why would you be able to identify with this poem? And the main thing here is already, you are writing exams. Ek is self besig om eksamen te skryf. I'm also busy writing. Iets waar alle schoolkinders gaan, all school kids have to write an exam some other time. Dit laat my dink aan onderwysers wat toesig hou waar ek soms skryf. You've also had teachers walking up and down, hearing their shoes as everything is quiet in the venue. I know it's very distracting, right? But you've been there, you know that. You've also had your teachers invigilating you. Then this one is funny. My juffrou se skoene raas ook as ek eksamen skryf. My teacher shoes also make noise when I'm writing exams. Tyd gaan ook stadig of vinnig verby as ek eksamen skryf, going on the time that either it goes by slowly or it goes by way too fast for you. And then also this one, ek het ook al 'n dag voor die tyd gestudeer. I before have also only studied the day before. So very easy to identify with this poem because right now currently you're in this position.